And on today's show, the state of today's LTC market, part one of this week's series on selecting the right long-term care coverage with long-term care expert Maria Sarchi. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to Backroom Technician and Innsmouth. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome, Maria.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm really excited about this week because we're going to talk about long-term care products, standalone, hybrid. We're going to touch it all this week. But I want to know kind of where, last week we were talking, you were saying, oh, your LTC is the environment today is completely different when I started as an advisor back in the mid-'80s. And there's been huge changes and revolution in our thinking and how we present it. Bring us up to speed on what today's LTC market is like.
Well, today's market is very different than it's ever been before, and I mean that in a very positive way. Today, there are more long-term care solutions available than ever before. When LTC first hit the streets in the early 1970s, it was really a standalone type solution. You paid an annual premium, and if you never needed a benefit, well, then the insurance company retained the premium, and, well, you were covered and thankfully didn't need your care. But ultimately, the consumer drove forward and said, we'd rather look at solutions that not only cover a long-term care event, but that can be used as a legacy asset for our family. So we saw an evolution and an innovative different product come to market called linked benefit insurance. And in today's long-term care landscape, there are also products that combine with annuities and life insurance solutions that now let you use the life benefit as a living benefit. So vastly different LTC landscape, but from the consumer standpoint, more choices than ever before.
Now, I've also noticed, before we get deeply into the weeds with hybrids, I've noticed that other contracts, standalone, regular life insurance contracts, not so much hybrids, but they have riders embedded in the contract. Some of them have a cost to it. Some of them are embedded as a contained cost. You don't have to really pay it.
That's right. That's the beauty of what's available today. There are so many different solutions. Cost changes and shifting throughout. So when the consumer says, I know I need to protect against long-term care, the advisor can now pull from products that really can be absolutely selected and customized for their individual client.
All right, so let's just go down this road. I remember when MoneyGuard came out. We have a life insurance contract that has long-term care benefits to it. Now all of a sudden we're talking about embedded contracts where you have regular standalone life insurance, because this is my little bit of my wheelhouse. And now we have LTC. So if I was going to look at a estate planning component and I wanted to do also long-term care, I might be looking at a traditional hybrid product, a standalone life insurance product, and figure out which one gives me the best benefit for the cost. Now we have a lot to choose from.
We do, and that's why the market is as great as it is. You have 4 different platforms, if you will, to choose from. The traditional LTC market, products where you've paid the annual premium. The products you're talking about, Steve, we refer to in the industry as accelerated benefits. We're accelerating the life insurance benefit as a living benefit. And yes, some of those costs for that rider, if you will, are embedded in the product. Some of them are paid for with additional premiums. It really all varies upon what the client is looking for, how important is that legacy asset, how important is the ability to use that benefit pool as a living benefit. You can slice and dice it so very many different ways.
Well, I like the ability to have an inventory of product lines that can achieve my long-term care goals, which I need to cover off. I don't think anybody in America is disputing that we're using this. Everybody in the secular class is talking about this every day. So I want to be able to come to the place, well, what's the best way to do it? I'm already sold that I'm going to need it. I need to solve what's the best financial solution to do that.
That's right.
Now, when I look at the potpourri, and you just named a few, and we're going to be talking later on this week, we're going to be talking only about accelerated benefits. When you think about the potpourri, the standalone, the true hybrid contracts, the accelerated benefits, both life and annuities, there's a lot to choose from. And parsing, here's the area where people like you are the experts, and we really need your help. We look at the math part of it, but we don't know the definition of the benefits. What does it really mean? What are we really getting for our dollar? And that's where we need to partner with an expert like yourself.
Yeah, and if you recall in last week's show, we talked about some questions to ask the client in those initial discussions. And you seemed a little surprised that the second question was, what is the key benefit driver? What is the client ultimately looking to achieve? With the landscape the way that it is, if I don't know the answer to that question, how do I know where to go? I can't cookie cut this long-term care solution. I can't expect client A and client B to be after the same thing, which is why the questions up front, where the funding will come from, what kind of medical history the client has, all of that plays a factor.
Well, when I'm looking, as we're introducing into linked benefits and so forth, They have a base that are annuity based.
Yes.
They have life insurance based. Okay, now I've noticed that people are sometimes confused between, oh, I have a long-term care rider on my annuity. I also might have a critical or chronic illness rider on my annuity, and they think this is all the same thing.
Yeah, and it really isn't. I mean, there's a lot of language that flows in our industry, and when you're an advisor, it's so easy to use that language with one another, but from the consumer standpoint, it can be a little overwhelming to understand the difference between chronic illness or critical illness. Probably the easiest way to describe it is like this. When you have a long-term care rider on these types of policies, know that the condition that the client has when they're triggering the benefit does not have to be permanent, and the benefits of the policy will pay. So I'll use a hip replacement as an example, or a knee replacement. That may require some long-term care, but it's not permanent. The client will get better eventually, and hopefully they can come off of their long-term care policy. With the chronic illness riders, in order for the benefit to be tapped into, the condition has to be chronic or for forever. So vastly different.
The distinction is huge. When we come back from the break, we're going to continue talking about this because we're introducing all this week all the different avenues that you can use for your long-term care solutions. It's not how much money you make for your clients, it's how much money they get to keep, especially in retirement. But retirement income could cause Social Security benefits to be taxed. One tax advantage alternative is life insurance designed as a non-modified endowment contract that can generate tax-free income without taxing Social Security benefits. These contracts offer differing funding options depending upon your client's risk tolerance. For more information on how life insurance can be part of your retirement planning, just email me at steve@downtobusiness.tv. Brought to you by Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Well, welcome back to our second segment. Of course, I'm with Maria Sarchi, author and expert on long-term care, and I can't wait to see some of your articles coming out all this month. You're going to see some of her great blogs, and I like to watch and read all of that Marie talks about on long-term care. Let's talk about linked benefit life, okay? The hybrid.
Yes.
What am I getting?
So this solution was born from the client's desire to have a promised benefit. They wanted the long-term care protection, but they weren't necessarily enamored with the idea of paying premiums for something that there was a possibility they may not need. So linked benefit life solutions came about as the answer to, I don't want to have to lose in order to win. There was a promised benefit feel to it. So somewhere along the late 1980s, solutions came to market that covered the client for the twin risks of living too long or dying too soon. And when you think about linked benefit life products, think about having a life insurance solution with a multiplied value for long-term care.
So they're actually taking the death benefit of the life solution.
Yes.
And that can be used now and converted into a living, paying benefit.
Correct. And it's at a multiplied value from the life insurance benefit, which is a key distinction when you look at the accelerated benefit products.
I like your distinction that's just made, and I find it so odd because I came in through the old school where you don't mix morbidity and mortality products on one chassis. But this is really, they've really artfully figured out a way to play this. Now, we've seen the life and LTC rider benefit, this hybrid, that's been around for a little while.
It has. And it's been very popular, and we see many advisors and consumers asking us about it. And the key thing here is that with those solutions, it's primarily spend down of the life insurance benefit. There's not really a second tank of gas the way you see in the linked benefit hybrid solutions that we just described. So in the accelerated benefit, client purchases either a long-term care rider or a chronic illness rider. We described in a previous segment how those differ. And once the death benefit is exhausted, well then pretty much that's the end of the coverage cycle.
Well, let's talk about the linked benefit when you're talking about annuities and a long-term care linked benefit. Talk about that.
So it's interesting because here you have clients that are using annuities and saving them for retirement. I think you've seen some of the stats, some of the studies on why clients are buying annuities in the first place. I think something over 75% just for emergency purposes in retirement. What could be a bigger emergency than having a long-term care event? So these hybrid annuity solutions give the consumer an opportunity to look at an existing annuity and convert it so that now they have long-term care coverage. They get to pick and choose. If they want to use the annuity value for long-term care, they could. And in some cases, that annuity value can even be multiplied, much like we see with the linked benefit life solutions.
Now, I've noticed that the Pension Protection Act of 2006 plays into the annuity LTC area pretty large here. Do you know a little bit about that?
I do. And
Please.
Essentially what happens is that when the annuity is being withdrawn for long-term care purposes, the individual does not have to pay income taxes on that annuity withdrawal because it is for long-term care.
Only for the benefit itself.
True.
Okay, so I have a annuity that I've been accumulating, as you said, I've been saving. Now I'm going to do an exchange, a 1035 exchange to a qualified annuity that has an LTC. It has to still fit the profile of the PPA, so I want to make sure about that. But now I've done that. Now, so the 1035 exchange was without a taxable event. So now I'm taking the money out for my benefit itself. That is also without a taxable event.
For long-term care, correct.
Yeah, see, to me, that is a huge tax issue here that actually is a little superior to the life side of that equation.
Well, I think it's about what you have, Steve, right? What's available to you. We spoke last week about funding sources, right? Where will the source of the premiums come from? Many consumers may not be aware, some advisors may not be aware, that you can use existing annuities, convert as you described, and have the ability to use it for long-term care purposes.
Yeah, to me, this is a huge ability to pivot and go someplace else, and I love that. Now, we did touch on this, but again, I want you to kind of give us a fair treatment to accelerated benefits.
Yes. So fairly new to the long-term care landscape, new in that it's not often been explained or used as a long-term care or longevity planning solution. But in actuality, if you have a life insurance contract and you want to tap into your life insurance benefit while living to cover a chronic illness or a long-term care event, you may do so. And that's very, very new. Folks may not even know they have that ability. So for every advisor that's out there looking at a life insurance solution, it takes and is worth the effort to take a few moments to see if there's some long-term care component that can be added, usually at minimal cost.
So that's another option. I think what we're doing is saying, even if you said, boy, I really don't want to spend money on long-term care or anything else, some of these other products may have inherent and embedded value using some of these, and not as a rider, but as an accelerated benefit.
True. And I'll also say, though, that it's important for the individual to understand that if you are going to use that life insurance benefit as a living benefit, that could impact what you're leaving for your heirs.
That's true.
So an awareness around that is very important.
Lastly, talk about standalone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still out there.
It most certainly is. It's still a very viable solution for long-term care. When you have individuals who don't have the financial means to cover a single premium or a much larger annual premium to cover the life and long-term care solutions, Standalone LTC still has tremendous value. It is probably the way that you can buy the biggest LTC benefit pool, not only today, but 20 years from now, 30 years from now, by putting the smallest amount of premium out of pocket today. And I know that may seem a little odd because folks are always saying, well, long-term care insurance is too expensive. Again, I'm going to go back to my example. If you had the opportunity to look at $4,500 a year in premium or have to come up with $5,000 or $6,000 a month in long-term care expenses, which is the average in our country today, which would you rather talk about?
Oh, I think it's just huge. When I think about the options, you've given us 4 different options that we can look at, and I like the ability, now we have multiple carriers with multiple options to fit and customize and tailor into a client's portfolio.
Yes, and not to complicate things, but you also can look at combination of those solutions. Standalone long-term care with a linked benefit life or linked benefit annuity. There's so much that can be done today. It's an exciting time to be in our world.
I love that. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas you hear on our show, always consult your tax advisor, legal counsel, or your broker-dealer compliance officer. Miss an episode? Just go out to our video archives. And remember, you could be wiser as an educated advisor. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you tomorrow.